Okay, so when it comes to a creative endeavor, should you follow or chase your passion or chase the money? Well, it's definitely the money. I mean, come on. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Next week, no, I'm just kidding. Hello, my name is Cody C. Engdahl. I'm the author, I am the author of 5 novels and a couple nonfiction books. I haven't having trouble speaking. I'll be honest with you, there's something wrong with my mouth. And it's been going on for several months now. My lymph nodes are swollen, my tongue is swollen, my gums are sore. I went to a doctor the other week. They put me on something for like a 5-day steroid thing. And they told me to call them back if that didn't work. It didn't. I'm going to go back. And now my tongue is turning brown. So there's something definitely going on. So anyway, I don't mean to bore you with any of that. So let's do, first of all, let's take care of a little bit of business before I get into this. Right now, in the UK, Mexico, my love, is only 99 pence, and it's going to stay that way all the way through Tuesday. So if you're in the UK and you haven't read any of my books yet, here's a great opportunity to get in. This is the prequel to my trilogy, the Civil War trilogy. This obviously takes place before that. It is the story of the parents of my main character in the trilogy, how they meet and fall in love together in France. They run away. They end up going on a big adventure that takes them through the deserts of northern Africa, across the pirate-infested seas, and eventually into the Mexican American War. So that is 99 pence coming up soon. This is why you tune in. Well, I know it's maybe not why you tune in, but Blood for Blood in Nashville is going to be 99 cents in the U.S. starting Wednesday all the way through the following Tuesday. And then on the 25th, Blood for Blood will be 99 cents in the UK for a whole week as well. And then I think that's it for a while. And then we'll probably have a special on Perils probably mid-October. So there you go. Anyway, how's everybody doing? So every week I try to have something to talk about, and usually I do. And I'm excited about this because I had a little bit of an epiphany, or maybe kind of not an epiphany, but a rededication to something. Now, I don't believe in one or the other in most things. I'm non-binary in this way. This is why they teach you the story about Goldilocks when you're a child. I think Goldilocks is the greatest story ever taught to children, because you don't have to be all one thing or the other. And a lot of times society pushes us to one thing. You think that you have to pick a side and then that's who you are. And then you have to always be that side. That's not necessarily true. You don't have to eat cold porridge and you don't have to eat hot porridge. You can eat porridge that's just right. And you can decide where that is. And the same thing with how hard your bed is and everything else. The United States is going through a presidential election. I won't get too much into that, but you don't have to be necessarily on one side or the other. I mean, you should vote, and you should vote for the person who is most closest thing to, like I have friends and family who are on the other side of me when it comes to politics. And sometimes they'll try to, convince me of their side, because they'll go, well, but the person you're voting for, you can't agree with this, you can't agree with that. Well, of course, there's the only way I could find someone to vote for that's perfect is if I cloned myself and then had that person, grow up, become, a politician, then I can vote for exactly what I want. But you can find the one that best suits you. Okay, so I'm way off course here. So let's talk about the pursuit of money versus the pursuit of passion. And I'm going to tell you right now, neither is wrong. And you don't have to necessarily be one or the other. And of course, sometimes they talk about the the middle ground fallacy. Someone pulled that out on me in an argument I was having with him, one of my many online arguments. And he told me I was, suffering from the middle ground fallacy, which means, like, let's say you say the earth is round, but I say the earth is flat. Okay. So because we can't agree, we agree on, okay, it's oval. Well, it's not. It's actually is round. So there is, and I also will say that sometimes compromises or hybrids could be something that's not quite one or the, not as good as one or the other. So sometimes it's good to, and I guess what I'm saying is, you don't have to be one side or the other, and you don't have to be right in the middle either. You can find the place that you are in a continuum, and most things are on a continuum. Okay. And I was listening to a podcast today. I'll tell you right now what it is. It's a rock, paper, swords. I've been on it. So if you want to try it, find the episode with me on it because they interviewed me. But this is Matthew Harvey and Stephen A. McKay. It's a great podcast. I listen to it every other. It comes out every other week. And they had a guy on who was a traditionally published author, and he had a lot of really interesting things to say. I love the inside baseball stuff, and I hope you guys are enjoying it too when I talk a little bit about inside baseball, because that's basically what I'm doing with this podcast, this show. I'm sharing my journey with you. I'm not saying that I know all the answers. I'm saying I'm on the path, probably like you are too. I'm at a certain point on the path. People are ahead of me and behind me. We're all climbing the mountain together. So I'm sharing my experiences, what's working for me, my failures, all that kind of stuff. But I heard Harvey say, and he was mentioning someone else, and he didn't quote who it was, but he said, writing is an art, but publishing is a business. And I thought that's very clever. And there, you can fall into a trap where you're only about the art and you're only about the passion and without any sense of the business or the money. And money is a good test. Money is a good indicator, because if you're writing just for yourself and you're not selling anything, well, maybe you're just being a little self-indulgent. At the same time, I've also seen people write very formulaic, puking out books that, and they're writing things in a very cynical, this is what I know to make money. Well, I'm going to tell you something right now. You writers, I can't speak for you publishers. I'm a micro publisher, but I only have one client, and that's me. If you are into making money, don't write books. It's kind of like, it's like playing the guitar, right? Like, you may get some success, but there's only a few people who are going to be like the billionaires, touring the world because they're this great guitar player. And even that's going by the wayside, because popular music, I hate to say it, I'm a rock and roll guy, but popular music has moved away from rock and roll. And most of the big popular acts are not ones that feature guitar players. Okay, we have some comments. So we have Lloyd. The Earth bulges at the equator due to rotation, so it's not perfectly round. I'm a nerd. That's my alarm telling me I need to take my trash out. You're right. So maybe at that point, the middle ground is a good thing. All right. So Brian Riley says, I tell my kids to fund their passion. You have more control over your own destiny. Nashville is a place where people came with big dreams who didn't have the skills to even make a living. Yeah. And I think that's right. I think you have to be realistic, and you have to think the big, the long term, the long game here. So I'm not saying that you won't make money if you follow your passion, and I won't say that you won't follow your passion if you're in it for the money. I would say that that the path is different. And like I said, if you're in it for the money, you probably go get a real estate license instead. and you can make money selling books, and I do. Uh, I was okay. Let's get to this. So what kind of inspired me to think about this was I follow a lot of YouTube channels, and for some reason, I follow a lot of geek culture YouTube channels, which is really weird because I'm really not into comic books or video games, or even really that much into Star Wars. But they talk about it, and there's a lot of drama in between the channels, and there's always drama with this, and culture war stuff. And I think I just enjoy it, as kind of like an observer. But and I think the reason why is because geeks, the meaning of, I mean, by definition, a geek is someone who has a huge passion for something, comic books or whatever it is. And usually, so they're passionate people, and I think I like passion. And then because of that passion, oh yeah, geeks are passionate and they're intelligent, and because of that, they create drama. Whether it's arguing that Star Wars is better than Star Trek or vice versa, or the new movies are woke. No, they're not woke enough. All that kind of stuff. So I like it. I enjoy listening to the discourse. And hang on, here's Lloyd. Lloyd says 1% of all writers make a real living at writing. 1% of those people like Stephen King. Yeah, and I think that is the thing that can be confusing and can disillusion a lot of writers too, because there will be people that write their first book and become multi-billionaires. There will be people that are even better writers than they are that will spend 10, 15 years writing before anybody really starts appreciating them and they start making the money. It's not fair. It's just everybody is on this on a different path, and the only thing that you can really do is try to be the best that you are, and work towards that. So I'm going to tell you this story. I'm going to try to make it very simple. There are two, because this is the story that kind of made me really think about this. Okay. So Star Wars is a huge thing, for multi-generational. I believe Brian and Lloyd, both you guys, were probably young men. Brian, you might be a lot younger than, I don't know how old you are, but having seen Star Wars all the way back in the 70s when it came out, like I went and saw. Let me know. Did you go see the first Star Wars movie in 1977? I did. I was 6 years old, and I saw it multiple. I can remember at least twice. I might have seen it more. Anyway, it's got multiple generations. I'm getting off topic. There was a YouTube channel out there, and these guys are millennials. Hands up. Okay, so Lloyd saw it when it came out to the theater, and they became they were passionate about it, but they were also passionate about the clout. They were, getting flown out to Los Angeles to do, first showings and all sorts of stuff like that, and really being kind of like cheerleaders for Star Wars and everything that Disney Star Wars putting out. They're big fans of, right? And they did well. I think currently they have about 800,000 people. Then another channel came out, another guy, and he wasn't really into the new stuff. He was just really into Star Wars in general. He'd like to talk about the theories. And his channel, even though he came out after Channel 1, or Star Wars Channel A, Star Wars Channel B comes out a few years later, and all of a sudden his views and his subscribers skyrocket past Star Wars Channel A. Star Wars Channel A reaches out to him and said, well, hey, not to pry, but what are you doing that's different, and hey, I'd like to be your friend. And Star Wars B says, sure, we can be friends. But then Star Wars A starts making videos putting down Star Wars B. And and then later on apologize for it. And the guy, even Star Wars A, tells Star Wars B, hey, I'm just really, I was really jealous of you because you were doing so well and we are doing everything we can, and somehow you're just doing so much better, and we don't know what's it. And he goes, I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm just doing what I think is right and what I like, and blah blah blah. And then eventually this turned into a really ugly thing in which Star Wars Channel A tried to get Star Wars Channel B demonetized. And so now, as this happened, it's kind of an open war. More and more is coming out about the two. And what it seems to be apparent is both of them are fans, are legitimate fans. But Star Wars Channel B now has 3.4 million subscribers, where Star Wars Channel A doesn't. And at some point, Star Wars Channel A decided that it was more important to them to go after subscribers and view count and having an inside track, so that they never say anything bad about current Star Wars, because they get invited to premieres and they get invited to demo video games, so long as they don't say anything bad. Whereas Star Wars Channel B is very passionate about it. He's been offered to do those things, but won't do it because the stipulation is that you can never say anything bad. And that he will say it was never about the money. It was never about the clout. It was never about the viewers. It's just that he loves Star Wars. And he tells a story about how, as a kid, he was picked on and bullied in high school because he had cancer. And, of course, he got through it. And they called him Band-Aid because he was always bleeding. So he was always coming to class with bandages. And they used to eat his lunch in the stairwell to hide from the other kids that picked on him. And Star Wars was an escape. And so his channel now is about that passion and that love. And sometimes he doesn't like the stuff that comes out, and sometimes he does. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that Star Wars Channel B was following his passion and stayed with the passion. And because of that, there's an authenticity. I can't speak because of my mouth. Authenticity to what he does. Where Star Wars Channel A may have started with that passion, but then got hooked into that cynical, looking at the numbers, looking at the view count and the subscribers, and then getting to a point where they become jealous and vindictive, and then try to do things like take the other channel down because they don't think it's fair that another channel that came later on somehow is outperforming them. And maybe it's because they were chasing the money and not the true passion. Now, that's a cautionary tale. Sometimes chasing the money is a good thing, but I have seen this happen. I've seen established, good authors, well-known authors, who write a certain genre, or I would say a subgenre. So I write historical fiction. I know a great historical fiction writer who I'm a fan of, who was writing well-known for a certain time era, and then jumped over to another one because that's the one everybody's reading, and then that didn't work out, and so jumped over to another in his genre chasing. And I'll tell you right now, when it comes to writing, you can't chase the genres, because what's popular right now, and I'll say I can speak for historical fiction. What's popular right now in historical fiction, by the time you jump on that and you write your book and you get it out there, it's already moved to something else. So I would say you're better off writing your passion and being authentic with your writing, because I think that's, in a day and age of, what's AI? What does that stand for again? Automated, artificial intelligence. In the era of artificial intelligence, and people chasing clout and chasing numbers and chasing the money and trying to be the most influential, what people really crave is authenticity, being real. That's why I like doing. I like doing lives instead of doing. I mean, and I don't think I do that well, but I do, as opposed to like doing recorded, edited videos because I feel like it can be authentic. I almost said authentic. I can be authentic. I can be myself. I can speak from my heart. So my own journey, I'll say that I wanted to write, and I did have an idea of what would be popular and what would not. And when I first started, I I had this debate: should I go the traditional route and look for an agent that would get me into a publishing house and go that route, or should I become um, start independent? And I decided that I didn't even want to start the process. I didn't want to get one rejection letter. My ego can't handle it. I was like, I'm just gonna. Well, one of the things I did, that I came to that conclusion, but I came to that conclusion after reading many articles, and this would have been in 2018, 2017, 2018. And some of the things I found out are even more true now than they were back then. So I really do think that I picked the right horse. So the spoiler alert there. The thing I learned is that, going back to that quote earlier, that writing is an art and publishing is a business, and it should be. And publishing is an investment. So when a publisher, it's one thing to be an independent publisher through KDP because the books are print on demand, so there's no loss there, and it's that, and it's digital, and and with digital you can sell ebooks. You get paid if people read your stuff on Kindle Unlimited. I'm also have audiobooks now, and so I get paid when people buy the audiobook or when people stream the audiobook, and it's the same amount as I get on Kindle Unlimited. So I get about a half a penny for every page read or listened to, whether they read it on a Kindle or they listen to it on Audible. But because I was independent, I could make my own decisions. I have a saying that if you want to be published in in the traditional sense in historical fiction, and I don't know what it is with other genres that people are writing, but I always say if you want to get published and you want to get an agent that's going to sell your book, you better write either Romans, Vikings, or Nazis, because those are tried and true genres. They sell. World War II is a big one. I think World War II is kind of coming back around. I'm seeing a lot more books coming out about that. I think we've had a really big Viking thing, and like I said, I know an author who was famous for doing Roman stuff, and all of a sudden he's writing Vikings, and then went on to something else. Maybe those did well. I don't know. But I think that when you are published through a publisher, you have to get them to agree to go along with what you want to do. Now, hopefully your passion is one of the things that they think will make money, but they're less likely to take risks. Because there's a big investment for them to physically print books and then to put those with your big staff and your sales staff, and then get those books into bookstores all over the world. So it better be something that it's a guaranteed winner. So if you go to them and you say, well, I want to write a book about the Franco-Prussian War, which I'm writing right now, they're going to be like, we did the market research, and there are very few books out there on that war because there's not a huge demand. So you better come back with a Viking, Roman, or Nazi book, because we're not doing Franco-Prussian. So I was listening to Rock, Paper, Swords today, and they had an author on there, and he was talking, and he's a guy who got published in like the 90s and has always been through a publisher. And he's even said, I think he put one thing out that he published independently, but he says, I don't really want to do all that work, the marketing. I want a publisher to publish it for me, do the marketing for me, so I can start writing the next one. But what was interesting is that here's a guy, and I can't remember his name, but he's a guy who can get away with that because he's established and his books do sell. So you put his name on a book, and he even has the ability to move around a little bit. I think he was doing medieval stuff, and now he's doing World War II. Or he's got a book about Shanghai in the 1920s, actually 20th century stuff. He has earned that privilege because he's been successful all these years. But I've heard from a lot of people that today the big publishers, they're only going to spend money advertising the very top percentage of their performers. They're not even going to bother. So if you're not famous already and they start publishing your book, they're not going to spend a dime on marketing at all. And so you're going to have to do what I do, which is I pay for ads on Amazon. I pay for ads for on Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram. I do a lot of my own organic marketing, and I run. And one of the things this author said, he says, if you're going to do that, you got to be on social media. And he says, I don't like it. I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to have to do that. Well, I'm fine with it. I enjoy it. I mean, look at me right now. I'm doing live on YouTube, and I've got it posted to most of my social media platforms, and I'm on most of them. I'm not super active. I mean, the biggest one for me is probably Facebook. I would like, Facebook, I have over 3,000 followers. I would like to have something like that on YouTube. So, by the way, please like and subscribe and all that. Leave a comment. But Twitter, I would say my number one is Facebook. I would like YouTube to be my number one, but we're working on that. Twitter, I'm building that. I'm on Instagram, but my feeling about Instagram is like, well, it doesn't really, it's not a whole lot more effort because Instagram is owned by Facebook. So everything I post on Facebook, I basically post it through Instagram, and then it puts it on both. So it's like, why not two for the price of one? So I'm there, and I'm on TikTok, but TikTok is really particular. It's just short vertical videos. So if I have something like that, I'll put it on there, and I'll still put it on Reels. And I'll tell you, I still do better with Reels. So Reels that are on Instagram and Facebook, I believe, get more reach than my TikTok ones do. I don't know. Maybe I need to work on TikTok. I know TikTok is I'm surprised by this. TikTok is getting really big amongst readers in the literary world. It's become kind of a thing that books sell on TikTok, which is so weird to me because I feel like TikTok is for people with no attention span, and books are for people who have big attention spans. So I don't know what the case is, but I was. Going back to the two Star Wars channels, and just so you know, I'm not hiding anything. I'm watching this. One is called Star Wars Channel A is called Star Wars Explained, and Star Wars Theory is the B channel. And listening to the story, listening to Star Wars Theory tell it, and then listening to other people comment on it, I realized that in the end, if you follow your passion and you work hard, then you might still get the money in the end anyway. Now, it would be really good. I follow Brian Cohen with what's that? The 5-day author ad challenge. He's got author ad school and stuff like that. And he really does promote, do the market analysis, try to write to the market, which he's not wrong. He says, what is the best job you could possibly have in the world? The best job is writing the books you want to write. What's the second best job you can have? Writing books that are not necessarily the ones that are your passion, but are going to be sellable. And I think that's okay. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that it's still an uphill battle to become an author who can completely pay their bills. It's not even being famous or being wealthy. It's just being an author that you can pay your bills with your books. And even if you chase the money, even if you chase your money, there's no guarantee you're going to make it, because there's a million guys and gals chasing the money. And whatever genre, there's a million people writing right now, high fantasy, cozy mystery, um, friends to lover romance, whatever genre historical military fiction. So my feeling is this: I could chase the money and still lose, or I can write to my passion and still win. And by the way, I'm not doing bad at all. In fact, I'm quite happy with the way things are going. But I feel like I told Laura this because I talked about it. I'm on this path of writing this series and thinking about what's going to happen in the future, and should I go after the money? Should I, after I finish the book I'm writing now, should I look at the market and say, okay, do I continue writing stories about Carl, or do I, write a Viking book or a Roman book or a World War II book? Well, I am going to write a World War II, or at least a book with Nazis in it, but that's a long time off into the future. And having listened to that whole drama between Star Wars Theory and Star Wars Explained, and seeing how the guy who was doing his passion and was authentic and real, and you could trust what he was saying because he really knew he loved it, and he was coming from the heart, and he wasn't vindictive. He wasn't like an anti-woke guy or a Go Team, Disney Star Wars guy. He was just an honest guy, and that authenticity got him 3.4 million followers. I started following him too. Great channel. I like his voice. He's got a really deep voice, very easy to listen to. With the other channel, it's just cheerleaders for Disney so they can get flown out to California and do their premieres and get gift baskets and all that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And they got 800,000 subscribers. I'll take that, so I'm not saying, what I'm trying to say is there's nothing wrong with chasing the money. And if you say, you know what, I would make more money and have more readers if I wrote this genre and I stuck to these tropes and I wrote formulaic books that fit this, fine. Do it, and I wish you luck, and you probably will do a good job. I decided that, like Mikhail Bulgakov, who wrote Master and Margarita, I'd rather be famous when I'm dead than be a blip now and make a splash and be forgotten. So I want my books to come from the heart. I don't like to share the creative. I don't like creativity by committee, which I think most movies are made today. And I will tell you this: if a big publisher came out and wanted to do a book deal with me, I would try it, but it wouldn't mean that I am done being independent. I would see what it's like, and if it's a good experience, I would keep doing it. And if it wasn't, then I would go back to what I was doing. But when you write that way, and I know this because I have friends who have authors and I've listened to them talk about this, you write your manuscript and then you send it to them, and then you sweat balls for like 2 months, and then they give it back to you and they're like, these are our changes. And I'll tell you, it's probably a pro who's making those changes. A good editor will say, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to take this scene out. You need to change this character. You need to add a scene. And you say, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, and you do it, and you send it back, and it goes back and forth until you and the editor are happy. And I've heard famous authors say, who never were independents like me, say, I couldn't exist without my editor. My editor is everything. And I understand that, and I think I'd be very scared to go away from that. I have a vision when I write. I know what, I'll take advice. I will. And if someone says, hey, this right here, and you should change this, sure, I'll listen to that, unless I know that I had a reason for doing that and I really believe it's a good idea, then I'll stick with it. But I like being in control of that. I also like, I wrote the Prussian Prince. At least people have heard of the Franco-Prussian War, the Austro-Prussian War of 1860. 1866. Come on, man. It was 6 weeks long. But the Battle of Königgrätz is pretty big, though. But I had the liberty and freedom to do that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that unless a huge opportunity comes, and I'm not looking for it, but I'd be open to it. I'm just not looking for it. I'm going to stay the course. I'm going to stay my passion, and that would be my advice to you as well as a writer. But that may not be the best advice for everybody. If right now, and by the way, making money is a passion into itself. And if that is your passion, make your money. But you're not. But if that's your passion, get a real estate license. Don't stop messing around with books. It's not a get rich quick thing. So that being said, I'll wrap this up. I am finishing the. Well, I'm finishing the third act of the French Fiasco, and I'm starting the fourth act. And this is, I've been kind of dragging lately because there's a lot of creative decisions that have to be made. Because if you know anything about my writing, I write historical. I consider myself a historical novelist, and I like that term better than historical novelist and historical novels. I like that better than historical fiction, which is the common term for the genre, because that means different things to different people. And for some people, it's more fiction than history. For me, the history is just as important as the story, and I personally don't agree with changing history to serve the story. The story should serve the history. That's just the way I feel. I'm not knocking anybody who thinks elsewise. But what I want is that when you read any of my books, that you can walk away confident that you know the historical facts about that event. So that if you read one of my books and you walk away when you read The French Fiasco, that outside of my fictional character, and it's very obvious who the fictional characters are and who are the real characters. And if it's not, it's in the historical note at the end of the book, that you should be able to say, yeah, I have a good understanding of what happened in the Franco-Prussian War, and I understand how the Battle of Sedan went down and all those things. So because of that, it stymies me, because I have to make sure that my creative vision, my story, fits into the mold of the history. And right now, because there's something I want to have happen, I'm trying to decide where that's going to happen and have it match up with the history and the time and everything like that. So that's what's kind of slowing me down. So here's where I am. I wrote my first 3 books on the American Civil War. Those do pretty well. The jury's still out, and I need to do some research to look at my numbers. I do know that I good read through. First of all, I know that I have excellent, what do they call this? Conversion. So I sell a copy. When it comes to my ads on Amazon, I sell a copy of Rampage on the River for every 2 to 3 clicks I get. So at least 1 out of every 3 people that click on an ad for Rampage on the River buys it. And I am told through Brian that if you have 10 clicks for 1 sale, that's pretty good. So I'm getting 3 clicks for a sale. That's great. I'm also getting read through. I need to do some more number crunching, but I can see it. I can see in my sales that The Perils of Perryville sells. It sells constantly. So that means people are reading book 1 and they're buying book 2. Same with Blood for Blood. Mexico, My Love, which may be my best book ever. I don't know. I have to really look to see if it's really selling. I feel like in some ways, and this is a little trap I may have gotten myself into, that Mexico, My Love may have stepped too far out of the subgenre that the trilogy is in, because the trilogy is American Civil War, and it's very much war novels. Mexico, My Love has a lot of action in it. and it has war in it. It has two wars in it. It has the Franco-Moroccan War of 1846 in it, and battles and everything. And we have Abd al-Qadir. He's an Algerian resistance fighter in Morocco fighting against the French. And we do battles. There's I think there's at least 2 battle scenes with the French, and the bombardment of Tangiers and all that. That's in the book. There's pirate in the book, and then there's the Mexican War, including the conquest of California that nobody writes about, and then the main theater, which I would say would be Scott's drive from Veracruz all the way up into the Battle of Mexico City. That's all there. But Mexico, My Love is a love story. It's not a romance novel. I learned this. It's a love story, but not a romance novel. The difference is, and this is when you start talking about genres and genre expectations, to be a romance novel, you have to have a happy ending. That's what that's the rule of romance novels. It says right on the cover, Mexico, My Love, a swashbuckling adventure and a tragic love story. It's a tragic love story. I don't know if the people that are interested in reading about the American Civil War are interested in that. Then that's a prequel. See, there's 3 books that are the American Civil War. You have a prequel that's a love story that takes place in the Mexican-American War. And then you go to, you pick up Carl after the American Civil War, and he has an Austro-Prussian adventure and now a Franco-Prussian adventure. So I might eventually, I'm thinking about this, and I would be interested to hear your opinion. What I had been doing is writing one big series, and I'm now calling it The Long Century. And it basically, it will have, all the books are sequential, except there's 2 of them that are not. The 4th book is a prequel. And the 7th book is going to be a character novel that is connected to the series, but not in the main sequence. And so I'm not sure if that book is going to be book 7 or a adjacent book. And the reason why I put it like Mexico, My Love is book 4 instead of a prequel is when it was set as a prequel on Amazon, Amazon wasn't showing it on the page, on the other landing pages. So it got no attention, and it wasn't making any sales at first until I made it book number 4. But I don't know if I can keep that trick going. So this is what's happening. Books 1 through 3 are Civil War books. Book 4 is a love story prequel, which is kind of out of the genre, about the Mexican-American War. And then book 5 and 6 are like basically the wars of German unification, which is, I'm not doing the Schleswig-Holstein, that's really hard, but swallow them out, War of 1864. But I do the Austro-Prussian War of 1866 and then the Franco-Prussian War, in which the nation of Germany finally forms out of the Kingdom of Prussia and Bavaria and Württemberg and all the small kingdoms that finally became an empire under the Prussian rule, and this will be the empire that we fight in World War I. But the next book is going to be a pirate book. It's going to be Black James. If you haven't read any of my books, James is mentioned a few times in the Civil War trilogy, and then it makes an appearance in the flesh, and it's pretty badass in the Mexico, My Love. He's a pirate. He's a 19th century pirate, though, so it's past the age of piracy. But I always like this idea of nostalgia for an age gone by. And if you watched my last video about Star Wars, the original Star Wars had that nostalgia built into it, even when it came out, about an age gone by. So, and that character, James, is a man who was a boy who grew up reading pirate novels, wanting to be a pirate, and becomes a pirate. And so that book 7 is going to be his story. And I'm looking forward to that. That might even be when we talk about chasing the money, American Civil War does have an audience. Mexican War, no. Um, the uh, the wars of German unification, not really. Um, but pirates, yes. And so when I do Black James, it might be an opportunity to put something out in a popular genre. And because of that, maybe I don't make it book 7 because I don't want people to think they have to read 6 books just to read the pirate book. That might be book 1 of a new series. And Brian Cohen says most people don't have success in their first series. It's their second or third. Maybe it's writing a pirate series, but I know this. I don't, back to the passion. I want to write a pirate book. I don't know if I want to write multiple ones. So we'll see. In between the French Fiasco I'm writing now and Black James, I am going to write a novella that's going to be, I believe, exclusive to my email list. So please, if you haven't signed up for my email list, there's a link in the notes. Click on that, sign up for it. When that book comes out, you'll get a free copy of it. It's going to be anywhere between 3,000 to 40,000 words. I'm guessing it's going to be more like 20,000. It's going to be basically based on the night before Rampage on the River begins, and it's going to star Chester E. Newman. He's a Detroit City lawman, and also a man who's aspiring to be a captain in the newly formed 2nd Michigan Cavalry. And it's going to involve the Underground Railroad and slave catchers and intrigue and adventure and fun. And there's going to be some romance and all that kind of stuff. So I'll start writing that when I finish the Franco-Prussian book. Franco-Prussian book, I would really have liked to have gotten it done mid-October, at least the rough draft. And it looked like I was going to be able to do that, but then I kind of hit a wall. I'm still writing a little bit every day, but I'm kind of trickling right now until I'm in the middle. Where I am right now, the Battle of Sedan has begun, and I did the opening rounds of it in the village of Bazales. I don't know if I'm saying it right, where an overzealous Bavarian corps commander sends a division into the dark fog-filled village because he thinks the French are going to try to escape there, and walks into a trap. And we have just brutal house by house urban combat. A lot of the books I've read about it say this is one of the first examples of modern urban combat. I don't think that's true because I know of examples of urban combat in the Mexican-American War and in the Civil War. And what do we mean by modern? I mean, yes, the Franco-Prussian War. We now have, they're not muzzle-loader rifles, but they're still like single-shot bolt actions. We have to open up the bolt and put a paper cartridge in there, fire it. So it's not like, it's still. We have the mitrailleuse, which are like a prototype machine gun, and they're in my book that make their first the first kind of machine gun used in battle. But I don't know if I would say that the Battle of Bazales, which is the prelude to Battle of Sedan, is the first example of modern urban warfare. I think I think the fight in Monterrey, Mexico, in the Mexican-American War in 1848, I think, was a pretty good example of modern urban warfare. But anyway, so I've done that. I have to finish the battle, so I'm halfway in the battle. I did a lot of I wrote what's called a treatment of what happens next, where you're not writing in a narrative voice, you're writing in kind of like a script. Like I've written out a script, what happens next in the next few things, and so that when I sit down tomorrow morning and start writing, I'll start writing the narrative using that that treatment as a guide. Here's Brian Riley. Brian says, "Sorry for the delay. No problem. Thanks for joining me. Love to see you here, and I hope to hear from you about what you're writing on. In fact, if you're writing something now, or even thinking about writing, uh, tell us what you're writing in the comments, man. I want to know." So he says, "Sorry for the delay. Saw Empire at the theaters when young." Yeah, I think Brian, I'm 53. I don't know how old Lloyd is. I think you're probably 10 years younger than me, but you're a young looking guy. But yeah, I can see that. Uh, Empire came out in 1980, and I would have been 9, and maybe you were 5. Uh, you're 49. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then see, I called it right there. So you're a Gen Xer. You were so if you're 49 now, okay, Lloyd's a year younger than me. So yeah, we're all the same age. Brian, you writing something, man? I want to know about it. Anyway, back to the plan. So basically, we're gonna finish the French Fiasco. Okay, yeah. So the Battle of Sedan is the end of part 3, and then there's part 4, and part 4 is the whole reason why I was going to write the book anyway. But I really want part 4 to land the ship. I just have to figure out where I want part 4 to take place, because there's a cavalry breakout that happens during the Battle of Sedan that's going to get my character out, and he's on the run, and he's going to be saved, and it's going to start. Still working on novel, but going slow, is what Brian says. What's your novel about? Give us a quick 1 or 2 sentence of, is it a historical fiction? Are we doing Space Marines, ma'am? What are you working on? I want to know. So once I finish the Battle of Sedan, and I think I have it pretty much figured out now, we'll write part 4. I have part of that actually written because I wrote the big scene way back when I was writing Massacre My Love, I think. So that's been written for a while. And then after that, we're gonna do. I'm gonna write that novella. It's right now the working title is the Underground Railroad Ball, and that's the one that's going to be. It's going to be exclusive to my email list. Then we're going to do Black James. Black James is going to be a point of departure because Black James is about that character that's in Massacre My Love, and he's mentioned in the trilogy. His story is kind of told in the trilogy too, at least about him escaping on a plantation. But I'm going to tell a bigger story that's going to start back with at least his father or even his grandfather, going all the way back to Africa, and it's going to be epic. And I believe the end of that novel is going to be right around where we meet him in 1848. So having said that, if that one does really good, and I'm going to mark it heavy on the fact that it is a pirate novel, because pirate books do sell, then there will be room for more either Black James novels or bringing Black James into the future novels. Because then after Black James, unless something changes, then we're on track to finish the Carliad, which is Carl's saga from Rampage on the River all the way to Carl's Last Stand, which is going to be the final book. So there'll be I think there's, after James, there's the North African Adventure, a Western. There'll be 4 more books. And then after that, that series will be done. There's a couple 20th century things I want to write. There's either World War II or pre-World War II book that I want to write that takes place in Germany during the rise of the Nazis. And I have a great idea. That I'm really excited about, and that I really think I can make this really sing, and it's great. One day I might write a 1970s crime noir novel that takes place in Detroit, but I don't have that on the schedule yet. Then after that, I'd like to reset because I'm doing the long century, long 19th century, which for me is the I would say you could extend it from American Civil War. I'm sorry, the American Revolution all the way to World War II. I have an American Revolutionary War novel that I want to write, and I have an excellent idea that I think it's going to be a really cool. I think people are really going to like it. That I don't think anybody's done. So I'm going to do that. I have an idea I have a great idea for a Haitian Revolutionary War, and that if Black James does really well, and somebody wants more than that, this Haitian Revolution book will be, I think it's going to be fabulous. I really like the idea for that. I also have a French Revolution book that could turn into a long series. It might be one book if that book does well. That's one of the genres. French Revolution, Napoleonic Wars, that's a moneymaker. So if that book does really well, then there's going to be room to write more and more and more books. And then I have ideas about going back to the 15th century, like the 1400s, fall of Constantinople. Not about the fall of Constantinople, about that era, because that's the beginning. The fall of Constantinople, by the way, for you history nerds, is the mark of the beginning of the modern era. So when we talk about like academic history, a lot of people say the modern era, well, that's got to be like, the 2000s on. That's the contemporary where we live. But in historiography, for most part, and of course, these are gray areas. It's not like one day, like people woke up like, hey, we're in this new era, right? Historians look back and then they put the dividers. So the fall of Constantinople in 1450, I believe, right in the middle of the 15th century, to most people is the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the modern era. It's the 1400s is where the Renaissance begins. England doesn't really get out of the Middle Ages until they conclude their War of the Roses. So they're kind of behind the game as far as culture moving forward, because they're locked in a civil war all the way up until the fall of Richard III, the Battle of Botsford Field. I never get that. I never say that right. Botsford Field. And so and it's broken up into the early modern era, the high modern era, I think that's what's called, and the contemporary modern era. And so the early modern era is the beginning, is the fall of Constantinople all the way up to the French Revolution. The high modern era is, I think that's what they call it. Tell me if I'm wrong. The high modern era is the French Revolution all the way up to World War II, which is kind of where the playground that I'm mostly playing in. And then the contemporary modern era is everything after World War II. And if you think about it, right, like, yeah, we can say that the 50s were very different from the 60s, that were different from the 70s, and blah, blah, blah. But culture hasn't really changed a whole lot since after. The world we live in hasn't changed a whole lot since. When you look back in a macro view, you'll see that we've been living in a continuous age that started with the end of World War II up until who knows what is going to be the marker of the next age now, or era, or whatever nomenclature we're using. There's many ages and eras, whatever, the digital age, the mass media age, the space age, all that kind of stuff. But the contemporary modern world starts with the end of World War II and everything that's happened, and the peace, the relative peace. There's no peace, there's war all the time. Yes, but not. But what we have, there's combat for sure, and there are wars, but we're having asymmetrical wars. We're not having wars like world wars where you have two advanced, wealthy technologically advanced countries going toe to toe. That will be World War III. So anyway, all that to say, I would like to get into that early modern era. I really dig it. I like the. Is anybody watching the House of the Dragon? We're in the middle of the last episode, so don't give anything away. But what I really like about the show, more so than the first one, is the art direction. Those big oversized swords, that's late. That's late Middle Ages, early Renaissance. The big swords. The costumes are very Italian Renaissance. It's a gorgeous show. I'm really enjoying it. But anyway, I'm gonna leave you guys there. I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back next week. I'm trying to do something, on a weekly basis. I'm reading a book. It's an author that I met in a Facebook group that follows the Franco-Prussian War, and he wrote a novel about the Franco-Prussian War. So there's not a whole lot of them out there. So I read Emile Zola's novel about it. I'm reading this guy's novel. I got 2 other novels that are on it that I'm reading just to keep my head in the game and make sure I'm not missing anything. What is really interesting about this guy, though, is that his novel, like mine is the Franco-Prussian War viewed through the eyes of an American who's been impressed into the Prussian army. His is the same thing, but it's a British journalist who is sent out to be a war correspondent. And what I thought was really interesting, because I think I met this guy because I was asking about the emperor's flight from Metz, about some events, and he says I too have written a book on this, and I cover some of that as well. This guy follows a lot of the same, because when you're writing a book about a war, you can't write about everything, right? So you have to pick the things that you think are important. So not everything perfectly, but a lot of the same. I mean, our stories are very different, but we're hitting a lot of the same beats, which I think is really interesting because, and I read his book after I'd written a lot of my stuff, and he does the Battle of Spicheren, which I do, and he does the Battle of Saarbrücken, like I do, and he does the there's different way routes you could have gone through the war. It seems like he and I made a lot of the same decisions about what events we were going to follow all the way up into the Battle of Sedan. Now I'm in the last 25% or last 20% of the book, and his character has gone back to Paris, and they're doing the not just the siege of Paris, but then the Paris Commune. But what I thought was interesting in his book is my book is like 50-50, the history and my story. I feel like his book is like 80% the history and 20% story. So it's almost as if like his main character is a tour guide of the war. He is because he's a war correspondent. So it's in first person. I'm in third person. And so he's just relaying these events that happen that aren't really big, have to do with his own plot, but then he has his own little story that's kind of interwoven. It's interesting. It's an interesting take. It's an interesting method. It's different from mine, which is great because here are 2 different. If you're interested in the Franco-Prussian War, here are 2 books that you could read, and you could read Zola's as well. And there's 2 others. There's Falkenhorst, which was written in the 70s, and there's also one, The Young Franc-Tireurs or something like that. And I think that is supposed to be memoirs of the Franc-Tireurs are like guerrilla fighters that fought for France, the French resistance during the Franco-Prussian War. So that's it for me. Love you guys. If you have an author that you like, it doesn't necessarily have to be me, go out there, read their books, and give them 5-star reviews on Amazon and on Goodreads. It really helps us because the algorithm looks at those ratings and how many people have given you them. So they say once you hit 100 ratings with a book, it really helps the algorithm. I know that Rampage on the River is sitting at like 97 ratings, and it's right at 4 stars. So I'm hoping I stay above 4. They say you need to stay above 4 stars. If you're above 4 stars and you have over 100 ratings, you're doing pretty well. So I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for any author out there. Help them out. I do it. I read people's novels. If they're a living author, I give them 5 stars. I do a review. We'll do a review maybe next week. It depends if I finish this guy's book or not. We'll do a review of his book. It's called I can't remember his name, but the book is called Assignment Paris. So anyway, I love you guys. I'll see you most likely next week, and I'll talk to you soon.